Welcome back to AI Today. I'm your host, Dr. Alan Badeau. Thank you for being here. As we've heard from our other guests, we're talking about various topics about, how hackers and how they're using AI against us in a lot of different ways. And, this week I'm extraordinarily lucky to have, Dr. Daron Acemoglu, an economist, an MIT professor, and also a AI expert when it comes to really how we are applying it to our social, our economics, and really the impacts across our entire lives. Daron, thank you for being here as always. Excited to have this discussion with you.
Thank you, Alan. It's my pleasure.
So Daron, one of the things, and I've seen some things recently that you have said that I couldn't agree more with about how AI is not as a major mover for everyday citizens. However, it seems like the hackers have a purpose, and now they have a really great tool that they've been able to use. What are your thoughts on policy? People are ticked off, and they're ticked off having everything stolen from them. What do we got to do to put a stop to this, or at least slow it down?
Look, I think AI has tremendous potential, and we will only waste it if we hype it up and use it incorrectly, and also leave it in the hands of people who want to use it for malicious purposes. AI is an informational tool. It can take information, it can present information, and it can manipulate information. Mm-hmm. That manipulative role is what a lot of people know how to monetize. If you want to organize a cyber attack, great. The better the tool you have in your hands, the more effective you're going to be. But if you also want to mislead people for other reasons, for example, you want to make people think that your supplement is going to cause all sorts of diseases, well, the more you can convince people using that informational tool, the better. But also, if you think about it, there are many things we can do much better with an informational tool during our day-to-day life. I can get much more reliable information. I can find out things that I can't do right now. For example, how to fix a tire or a short circuit in the house. So an informational tool used correctly could be very useful for a variety of purposes. So if you multiply this to all the use cases in the production process, that's fantastic. But here's a problem with the hype. If you hype it up, everybody's going to invest right away because they don't want to be the ones left behind. And they don't know what to do with it. They're going to use it for all sorts of purposes for which it's not well designed, at least at the moment. They're going to automate a lot of things that shouldn't be automated. They're going to waste a lot of money, invest in all this technology. They don't know what to do with it. And of course, we're going to put trillions of dollars of GPU capacity, computing power capacity, and energy into these models because we want to expand them before we know what to do with them. So the hype is actually quite dangerous, except again to the cyber attackers and the manipulators.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It is a concern when you look at, using AI for things that it's not designed for. And I always tell people, you've got to have a human in the loop, even when you deploy some of the things that it is designed for, because you never know what's going to happen. I think from a policy perspective, and this has always concerned me when I raise a flag, even when I was supporting the government doing a lot of different things when it came to AI, in that how is it regulated? And it always seems like policy is lacking behind technology, which is not unusual. However, it seems like it's a little bit even farther behind when it comes to AI. What can we do about that?
Well, look, regulation is hard. Regulating anything is hard. Did we start regulating pharmaceuticals right away? No, it was quite a while after people realized that you could do a lot of damage with the wrong drugs or the wrong chemical compounds that the government jumped in and started passing some comprehensive regulation on what could be approved by the FDA and the process and all of that. AI is much more complex. it isn't surprising that we have fallen behind, especially during a time when president after president, administration after administration emphasized deregulation. But also, it's a outcome that's supported by billions of dollars of lobbying. Tech companies don't want to be regulated, and they are now some of the biggest lobbyers in the world. So lobbying requires, so regulation requires a sort of a clear-headed approach. What is it that we want from these tools? What are the dangers? How can we steer it in a better direction? And I think you put your finger on exactly the right thing. We want a human in the loop, precisely because in many of the use cases at the moment, there's a lot of uncertainty. The technology can misfire. But more broadly, I think if you approach AI as an informational tool, it would be most useful if we put it at the service of humans. So if we actually put it at the service of humans, of course, humans are going to be in the loop because they are the ones who are using AI.
Yeah, and I think from that human in loop perspective, I've talked to the audience about a couple of examples that I know have scared a lot of folks, especially on the financial side. And I just saw recently where certain banks and the amount of money that they lost in a certain quarter. I'm trying to be very broad and not get myself into any trouble, but it's really concerning to me that as the deepfakes and the number of hacks and the impact on a citizen's livelihood from these financial institutions, they are really treating cyber hacks and that kind of information very differently than they have your traditional credit card fraud that has taken place in the past. And I think that is another area that I get emails all the time about that. What can I do? How can I get some help? I don't have a great answer for them, and maybe you do. Maybe you'll have a better answer for them. But what can they do?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that I do have a great answer, but with all technologies, if you want to use them for automation, the degree to which they can become truly autonomous is going to depend on their reliability. Once robots reached a sophistication level that they could actually do the welding tasks, then you didn't need to have a human babysitting them. Today, a lot of things that are related to IT security on your computer happen without you approving each step, because that has a very high level of fidelity. AI is not there yet. It is likely to misfire, give you incorrect answers, or miss certain patterns. And that raises the stakes if you want to use it for security, if you want to actually make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do, and it increases the reason for having humans in the loop and also the right regulatory approach so that it doesn't completely lead to a meltdown.
Yeah. From your perspective, Daron, do you think? Well, let me put it a little bit different. Where do you think we will be in the next year when it comes to policy? Do you think with constant bickering and the things that are taking place, do you think that we can get there in a time frame that we'll actually get something on paper that'll be meaningful, realistic, something that can be applied, that can actually start to stem some of this, these activities that are taking place? Or are we still going to be in the Wild West next year?
I'm not super optimistic because right now we just entered the presidential election cycle. So bipartisan bills are much harder today than they were, say, a year ago. And everybody knows the current situation of Congress, where it is very difficult to bring people from the two aisles together. On the other hand, I do see that lawmakers have become much more informed about AI-related things than they were about 5 years ago. And moreover, when I've spoken to people from both parties, I see some similar concerns about manipulation, about what social media is doing, mental health, joblessness, inequality. So it is possible, I believe, to have comprehensive legislation about AI, but I don't think it's going to happen very quickly.
Yeah, that's a concern that I have as well, and I know our audience has the same concern. They're frustrated. They don't know what to do. They're scared at the same time because they're hearing alarmists talk about AI taking over the world, and turning into the Terminator and those kind of things. I try to dispel that as much as I can, and I know you do as well. And it's just really frustrating for folks, and when you don't understand the technology, sometimes you always think the worst, and I think that's where we're at today. And I think we just have to keep pushing forward and try to do the best that we can when it comes to that. I really hope that we get to at least where the European Union is, and they had a great comprehensive document that they put out. It was a first. It's got a long way to go, but at least they had something down on paper that was really strong.
Well, absolutely. This is all correct. And you know why European lawmakers acted and why today American policymakers are more concerned about these issues? Because they keep hearing people's concerns. So the more Americans raise these issues with their representatives, the more likely it is that we get something out of this. Mm-hmm. And exactly like you said, people having the right emphasis, the right recognition of what the problems are is central. The two poles of this, either sort of blind techno-optimism, everything's going to work out, OpenAI and Google are going to come out with the perfect technologies and we're all going to be amazingly prosperous as a result, or killer robots are coming. Neither of these two poles are helpful. It's somewhere in the middle.
That's right. That's right. And I
Sorry about my cough.
That's okay. That's okay. And I think that is really the perfect way to describe it. It's always somewhere in the middle. But I'll tell you, when you mess with people's money and they're scared about that, that is usually when they get the loudest.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, Daron, what's the easiest way for folks to get a hold of you if they have any other questions?
I think email or Twitter would be best.
And I know you have a lot of things that are coming out. I see a couple of things a week on some new articles, some new interviews that you do. So I really encourage folks. The easiest thing to do is put Daron's name in Google, and you'll get notifications on when you can read some of his stuff or see new material that's coming out there. I really hope everybody does that. Daron, thank you again for being here. Great discussion, and I know we'll have more conversations about this as we move forward and people get more mad. I think that's when it's going to be interesting to see. So for our audience, thank you for being here this week. I hope you learned something. I hope you're excited. I hope it gets you fired up a little bit. I'm fired up. I'm tired of having my identity stolen. I know you all are too. Look forward to having a discussion with you next week. We'll have another great topic and another great panel of guests. So thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful week. Thanks.
Thanks, Alan.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.